Well, to discuss the events in Libya, I'm now joined live by Anthony Weil. He's founder and chief editor of the online newspaper, The Daily Bell, joining me there in Zurich. Well, we hear a lot about the anti-Gaddafi forces, but we actually know next to nothing about who they are. What do you make of them? Who do you think are their leaders?
Well, the leaders, there's quite a bit of speculation as to actually who is pulling the strings of what's happening in Libya. For example, the UK Telegraph recently ran a piece which talked a fair amount about the Alliance for Youth Movements, which is an effort that was formed in the United States by Jared Cohen, who was the former top advisor to both Condoleezza Rice as well as Hillary Clinton in the State Department, and he, along with the support of the State Department, formed the Alliance for Youth Movements and their affiliated website called movements.org. What's important about this is that that organization has as its stated mission, along with several multinational corporations who sponsor the organization, its mission is to provide a conduit, a training, so to speak, platform for instruction of how to organize and prepare for, let's say, electronic-driven protests or communications revolutions like the ones we're seeing driven in Libya today. And there is a heavy footprint involved in both the sands of Tunisia as well as Egypt and now in Libya with this organization. So there's a direct tie-in to the U.S. State Department here. As a matter of fact, in 2009, Hillary Clinton gave the keynote address speech in Mexico City for this organization. So that would be an example of a foreign organization that seems to have some leadership influence on the ground in Libya.
You say it seems to have some sort of influence and leadership, but a lot of media reports are suggesting there's a little bit of confusion about who really is making up the opposition, quite a disparate group. And you clearly mentioned one element there, but let's say the opposition does succeed in taking power. Do you think that actually they will be organized enough to form a cohesive government?
I think that a cohesive government will initially be brought into Libya by Western forces. For example, once again in Washington D.C., another American organization, which is headed up by Ibrahim Sahad, which is the National Front for the Salvation of Libya, has been providing a great deal of sideline advice and consultation. Now, Mr. Sahad himself is a former captain in the Libyan army and has a fairly deep amount of knowledge about how to operate, so to speak, tactically within military confines. So you have a grooming ground in Washington, which also seems to have a great deal of influence. I think what you're going to see here is a secular-style Western government that would be introduced post-Gaddafi, but the likelihood of it succeeding for any length of time is minimal at best.
Secular style, so you see no religious element at all in this uprising in Libya?
I do, but I do believe that initially we will see a Western-style, secular style of government that will be introduced, but that will fail, I believe, within a very short period of time. And I believe that is when we will see a more fundamentalist Islamic type of government that will surface and take power. But initially, I do believe there will be a thrust by Western governments to try to instill a secular style of Western governance. But I don't think it'll work.
The way we're talking, Anthony, it sounds as if Gaddafi's days are numbered and almost over. But actually, we're seeing him strengthening his counter-offensive. Could there be a chance that he could survive and carry on? If so, what could the consequences be?
You know, I don't think he's going to be able to survive. You know, his financial means have been severely hampered here. If there's a no-fly zone instituted by NATO with the U.S. Standing off the shores and the British with warships ready to move at any time, I think the muscle is being flexed and the message has been sent. I don't think Gaddafi's going to survive. If he was to survive in some embattled form, you'd probably have a situation that looks a lot like Somalia today. But I don't really see him holding on here for much longer.
You mentioned a little earlier the Muslim fundamentalist aspect, the Islamic aspect. Isn't that a very good reason why there should be foreign intervention now from the US and Europe to prevent exactly that happening, a power vacuum then being led onto a Muslim fundamentalist state?
No, I disagree entirely. I would agree more with Vladimir Putin's remarks recently that it should be a natural democratic shift within the Middle East, in any of these countries. If there's going to be change, it should be change that is, and I hate that word, but I'll use it anyway because it's the word of the day again, but change in the Middle East should be driven naturally by the people themselves. And the Western powers coming in to try to, through force or other means, put down whatever form of Islamic fundamentalism they actually believe is going to surface. I go back to my comments earlier on your program last week. You look back at what's happened in Saudi Arabia and where the funding and the relationships into the Western powers have spawned and grown from. You'd almost have to say that Islamic fundamentalism is something that may actually be desired by Western powers. So anyone that would suggest to me that they're going into the Middle East here to try to squelch Western Islamic fundamentalism, I disagree with that entirely. I don't see that at all.
You put forward a very good argument of why there shouldn't be foreign intervention from an international perspective, but why is it that the rebels at one stage they seem to want a lot of help from by foreign intervention, but now are actually saying that they don't want any foreign intervention? You would imagine that because they're under such pressure and the death toll mounting, why is it that they don't want any help?
Well, they're going to get the help whether they want it or not, and some would say that the help is basically what's been driving this revolution to begin with. Not to say or take anything away from the people in Libya who are fighting and putting their lives on the line here to actually make some form of a change. But you look at what's happening in the world today and the pressure that's mounting with respect to foreign intervention being demanded, especially from the Western mainstream media. You would have to think that the Western media trumpeting such intervention is something that is heard loud and clear within Libya by the Libyan people as well, and the people on the ground who are leading this movement. I don't think it's a cohesive movement. When I talked earlier about Mr. Sahad in D.C. or the Alliance for Youth Movements, they're influencing factors, but I don't believe that there's necessarily a unified on-the-ground presence in Libya that is being cohesively led by any one group or any one individual. And that means also that there are certainly fundamentalists and others within the Libyan population who do not wish to have any foreign intervention at all. There are others who would probably like to see it happen, much like Mr. Sahad sitting in Washington, D.C.
Well, and others, of course, who've got their eye on the oil reserves. One does wonder, there's a lot of talk about intervention based on humanitarian needs, but when we see what's been happening in Zimbabwe and Kyrgyzstan, there's been no foreign intervention there, but there in Libya, strategically it's very important, got a lot of Western business interests, and of course it's oil reserves. Isn't that a reason why there could well be foreign intervention?
I agree with that statement I agree with that statement, but I think it can go deeper than that in terms of the analysis of what it's all about. Tunisia is not exactly an oil heavyweight, so to speak, yet it was the first domino to fall under this parade of coordinated, it seems, color revolutions. So if I was going to look at it from another perspective, I'd say yes, the oil is very, very important. There's no question that in today's world, if you are in a position where we believe there is a strive towards global governance and you have Western powers who are focused on maintaining control, the United States, as an example, has witnessed a severe attack to the confidence that it's been maintaining in its currency over the past several years, as the internet is spawning an understanding of the central banking-oriented type of what I call fraud that's been perpetrated on Western societies. And without oil being priced in U.S. dollars, that dollar would suffer a major blow. And it's not just human beings like you, me, and other people sitting there today looking at this interview who are waking up and realizing the giant, so to speak, I call it a scam or fraud that's been perpetrated on Western societies by central bankers. It's also people running nations that are selling their oil, and they're probably getting a little less than enamored with holding big inventories of devaluing U.S. dollars. Saddam Hussein certainly found out fairly quickly when he threatened to reprice oil in something other than U.S. dollars what sort of a career-ending move that can be.
Anthony Weil, founder and chief editor of thedailybell.com. Good to talk to you. Thanks for joining us live on RT.